Johnson.
So let me point out, I think the 800-pound gorilla in the room is the tremendous pressure society-wide to keep these planes flying. I mean, if we were to literally ground stop 737s, what would happen to our economy? That's why we don't even like contemplating that reality. But I want to start focusing on the 737 because that's the one issue. You got the 787, then you have the subcontractors, from my standpoint, the three, and then the overall culture of Boeing. But there's a discrepancy between our two witnesses here. Mr. Pearson, you were saying that it was a manufacturing defect, and Mr. Jacobson, you're focusing on the MCAS, which is what the public was all told. It was that control system, and with only a single indicator that if that went defective. So again, that was the story told. What is the truth? I mean, we'll start with you, Mr. Jacobson.
Well, the truth is it's more than one thing, right? It's the entire system. You have to look at manufacturing. You have to look at also at the design. Since the MAX has gone back into service, this is the list of manufacturing. These are unsafe conditions that are identified by the FAA in the manufacturing area. Engine anti-ice, exhaust duct fasteners, compromised seal and adhesion within the center fuel tank, loose bolts in the rudder assembly, stuck rudder pedals, misinstalled electrical wire bundles in the wing spoilers, and then, of course, the door blowout was also a manufacturing defect. So we have a long list of unsafe conditions from manufacturing defects. We also have a long list, equally long list of design defects. So what that tells me is it's a company-wide problem. It's not.
So the MAX was taken out of service for how long? Quite some time, right?
20 months.
20 months. And again, the public, I was certainly hoping, assuming that 20 months they were able to correct those defects, that they did install more of the indicators, right? So they somewhat fixed that problem. I mean, are all these other problems completely unaddressed, not fixed?
There were many problems that were unaddressed. The crew alerting system is the big one. That one was not addressed. That contributed to the crashes. The pilots had a lot of false indications going off, which delays their response, and they're trying to figure out what's going on. In the meantime, the stabilizer is running and the nose is running down. So it's a combination of things that need to be addressed.
What do the pilots had to say about this? I mean, one of my things that comfort me is that pilots are concerned about safety. They do some safety checks even before they get on the airplane, but they're the ones that have to fly these things. What do pilots have to say about the 737 MAX right now?
Well, I've heard some reports. Dennis Tazier has been very vocal. He's an American Airlines MAX pilot. Also works with us at the Foundation for Aviation Safety. He's been very vocal about the shortcomings of the MAX.
Does he fly them?
He does.
And he still flies them?
He still flies them, and he says, why is Boeing putting all these extra hazards into my cockpit? It's a big enough job to fly this airplane and take care of the passengers in the back. I don't need extra problems to be dealing with, like manufacturing defects, design defects, and they're one after another. There's a long list that I've put in my written
Mr. Pearson, do you have anything to add to that on the 737?
No, I totally agree with Mr. Jacobson. When they investigated the accidents, they narrowly scoped it and they kept it very tight. And as an example of that, when the plane was returned to service, the MAX airplanes were returned to service, they said that they fixed the MCAS software and they provided the pilots the training that they needed. And then they said, we fixed some wiring, but it was unrelated to the accidents. Well, a couple months ago, we found the service bulletin that was sent out to the airlines to fix some wiring. That document was 343 pages long. It identified at least 12 areas on the airplane that had improper electrical installation. And I will tell you that when those planes were being built, we were having repeat problems getting our functional testing done correctly. And this is something that we continued to push and push and push the planes out the door, and we were having difficulty getting our aircraft systems testing. What people don't know, and I'll just give you a couple of examples very quickly, is in the Lion airplane, that sensor, that angle of attack sensor, was removed the day before, replaced with the refurbished sensor. On the next flight, the plane almost crashed. On the next flight, it did crash. When that plane hit the ocean, it went right into the seawall. They never recovered that sensor that was just installed, but they had the original Boeing installed sensor, and they tested that sensor, and it had an open circuit in it. It had evidence of arcing and burn marks. And so that is an example. And then I'm just pointing that out, that this is...
That's getting a level of detail right now I don't have.
Okay.
Fine, appreciate that. Again, I'll keep, this shows you, Mr. Chairman, what we need to get the airlines in here, whether they want to or not. They have to come in here and talk about what they're doing in response to these technical bulletins. We need to get pilots in here. We need to talk to pilots, because from my standpoint, they're almost the last line of defense in terms of safety from the flying public, because they're on that. I would never get on a plane that's autonomous, never.
Senator, I echo what you're saying, but I think we also need to broaden that aperture. We need to talk to the mechanics and the technicians and all those individuals.
No, again,
Yes,
as
sir.
you said in your testimony, five minutes testimony doesn't even begin to scratch the surface. Hour and a half hearing doesn't even begin to scratch the surface. That's what I said. This needs to be an in-depth investigation. There's a lot of elements to this thing. In preparing for this, I did listen to one NBC News report, and this is on the 787, on this gap, and they were reporting that Boeing had apparently stress tested a plane, 165,000 takeoffs and landings, which is 3 times normal life. They inspected 689 of the 1,100 planes that are in service, 0 evidence of fatigue. So how am I supposed to interpret that?
Well, I think Boeing tries to put a lot of misinformation out there. The problem is that 165,000 was on the original airplane. It did not see the excessive forces that we're talking about. If you haven't done the excessive force on those planes, they just thrown that out there to muddy up the water so that information is so clogged up that they are not. You know, they're saying they done 40,000 tests or whatever. You know, did they put the information out there? Under what circumstances, what airplanes, what was the situation? None of that is shared. I have asked Mrs. Fall, you know, Lisa Fall, that it was on that thing 2 months ago or 3 months ago. When I met her, I said, hey, you know, I'm complaining to her about the 787. She said, I'll have somebody get you the information. You probably haven't seen the information. I have not seen any information whatsoever. Okay. As a matter of fact, you know, like they're just throwing that stuff. If you want to change the information, like the 165,000, then you need to rerun that test with 165,000 with the new excessive force and show that it's good.
You got to show your work. Just one quick question for Mr. Pearson. You said you had delivered records to the FBI. First of all, how did you obtain those records, and have you heard back from the FBI?
The records were sent to me, and
from an internal whistleblower.
From an internal whistleblower, and I provided those records to the FBI. And again, you know, for the last couple months, there's been talk that there's no records, and that's obviously
this
not
on the Alaskan airline.
This is on the Alaska Airlines.
That Boeing apparently overwrote the video that would have shown. Again, I've talked to Boeing. They said that's just normal. It's a 30-day cycle, and it's not really, the video's not there to document the maintenance. It's really to document other things potentially, but it's overwritten regularly.
Yeah, I'm talking about the actual documentation that they've been saying has not been available. It is available.
It is available, and the FBI
and it has been available for months.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thanks, Senator Johnson. We're going to go to Senator Marshall, then Senator Hassan, and Senator Hawley.